Murphy Austin Adams Schoenfeld LLP, focusing on business law and commercial litigation, is proud to support Rob on the Road Region Rising. More information available at murphyaustin.com.
And now, Rob on the Road, exploring Northern California.
I am so excited to welcome Secretary Karen Ross with the California Department of Food and Agriculture. It is so great to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
Rob, it's a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
I'm so glad you're here. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. You are our state's ambassador of all things good. And so we're thrilled to have you here, Ambassador Ross.
How lucky am I? Thanks, Rob.
First of all, I would love to just ask you, how are you doing and how are all of your loved ones with COVID?
Yep. Thanks for asking. Everyone's doing fine. You know, a lot of my family is in Nebraska, and so some of them have had COVID, but everyone, it was very mild, and so we're thankful for that. And my husband and I have just been little toads staying at home all the time, except for me coming into the office every now and then. Yeah, so you know, it's been such a stressful time.
It has been stressful. It's been very stressful, and it's been something that I think is going to linger on in the stress area as well, because it's trauma. It has been traumatic.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, hopefully it'll be another 100 years before we ever have something like this again. But we're living through something that's 24/7 and has been here for over a year. I'm just, you know me, I'm always looking at the bright side, and the bright side for me is that science was able to work to bring us vaccines, and even though we're still very, very short on the whole supply, we have it, and that is like this pathway. You can see where we're going, and it's going to be a very bright future.
How is, and this is probably a loaded question, but how is the state right now, I guess in more ways than one, the state of California, but the state of farming and agriculture and ranching, how are things going right now after an incredibly difficult year? Yeah. That's not over.
Yeah. So I'm going to be very focused on agriculture, the farmers, the ranchers, the farm workers.
Sure.
So there's several things on that. One is that with COVID and the suddenness of the closing down the economy as the best way to slow down the spread, and to allow us to build the capacity so we could handle whatever was coming at us. That suddenness is what was the hardest thing to make adjustments to. And so our farmers and ranchers, like overnight, they lost as much as 50% of their markets because we shut down food service. And it's hard for people to realize before COVID, a little over 50% of our food dollars were spent out of the home, whether it was fast food, fine dining, cafeterias, large institutions where we work, all those kinds of things were just all of a sudden shut down. And at the same time, we had a 73% increase in demand at our food banks. So that just shows you how things just turned upside down very rapidly. We had some experiences, but not to the extent that were publicized from across the country, of fresh produce having to be plowed under because there was no place to send it. And when it's ripe, especially, you know, in our highly perishable goods, there's no way of storing that. You know, almonds you can store, but not so much the leafy greens. We had very minimal milk that had to be disposed of, partly because the department has this great partnership with our State Association of Food Banks. And so we created it over 15 years ago. It's called Farm to Family. And it is on an ongoing basis for us to get fresh produce into food boxes for families. And we've been doing that for 15 years. And we had an outlet. The governor announced a big fundraising campaign to help us get even more of that food to those food boxes. So that's one way we pivoted. Many of our farmers lost their restaurant sales, and that really impacts a lot of small farms. And so, credit to people like Patrick and Bob Mulvaney, who helped create the Great Plates program, because when we could start finding alternative ways of getting prepared foods to seniors and people who are homebound, that was also pulling food into the restaurants, keeping some people employed, helping us small farmers.
And they still did schools too. They also
And-
maintained with
and
school
made
children.
with schools. And then we saw so many more subscriptions, community supported agriculture. Almost all of them became oversubscribed overnight because people were at home and they could order and have fresh produce available. And our farmers markets, because they were deemed essential, just like the grocery store was. I don't know how many times you go to the Sunday farmers market, but I go as often as I can, and Dan and Renee Best and Danielle do such a great job. And you noticed right away, what they had to do to adapt, to have the distancing, the masks, and all of that. But they were able to keep those farmers markets open, and they were a critical outlet for our small farms in this area. So those are some of the adjustments that were made. Up and down the state, farmers and ranchers just figured it out. And the biggest thing was, how do I get PPE? Because everybody needed it around the world at the same time. So getting PPE, getting gloves, getting, protective barriers where we needed to, how to restagger the work hours. I mean, incredible innovation and quick adaptation, which is a tribute to California agriculture.
When this first started, I have to tell you that I was incredibly concerned because this food and our agriculture business in this state is one of the largest in the world. We not only feed so many parts of this country, but our exports are tremendous. And it's like a train, a moving train that just can't stop.
Yeah.
And everybody go home. It just doesn't work that way.
That's right.
So how do you jump in right there when all this is happening and get things directed back on track, if you will, serving different needs in different areas? You mentioned the restaurants that were no longer able to get food or to purchase the food, the contracts. Grocery stores, many things were changing there as well. But how in the world do you begin to put your head around the entire state, an economy that is also one of the biggest in the world?
Yeah. Wow. I don't know. You just do it. You're making it sound like, wow, that was intimidating.
It's a lot of work. And that's why I bring it up, because you did that. It's just it's such a big deal.
No, but that's no one person. It is everyone. And with Governor Newsom's leadership, it was all of government approach. And that's been his approach, is that take a more integrated systems approach, that we don't just do things at CDFA because there's a nexus with resources and obviously with public health. And so being organized as we are through the Office of Emergency Services really brings all eyes on deck, all hands on deck as we start to just plow through things. And the first one was, if we have to shut down the economy, how do we make sure people have food? All of a sudden, it helps you rapidly identify essential. And then that becomes factored into all of the guidances that have to be prepared. How do we keep that going, but doing it safely? So that was the early days. It was a lot of that. But then I have to be mindful that my staff, the terrific public servants that we have, are the ones that are also out there doing the inspections, doing the food safety work to make sure that commerce can continue to operate. And so we were scrambling for the same PPE that our farmers and ranchers and others in healthcare were after. And just people, it's just such a tribute to the resiliency of Californians in particular. We are resilient, but we're also extremely innovative. And this was the chance we had, like, we're in this together, we will figure this out. And I'm just so grateful to my colleagues in cabinet, to the governor's office, and to the governor and first partner, and to the resiliency of our farmers and ranchers and the farm workers. And we saw some things that are broken. And one of those is in our farm worker community. They've been somewhat in the shadows. And I think part of that is because of our immigration policies. And we now see what needs to be done for our most vulnerable in our rural communities.
What do you see or hope for in this year, in 2021, when it comes to our farm workers?
Yeah, well, I know for a fact that if you approached a farm worker, they would not think of the Department of Food and Agriculture as someone that has any connection to them. They'll think of the labor agency, the Ag Labor Relations Board, perhaps the Department of Social Services. And so it's been really hard to identify good programs that we could initiate to truly do that. And as we rethink our food system resiliency and how we want to have, avoid some of those disruptions that happened in the past because we're so centralized, just in time, quote unquote, food production kinds of things, that we're putting the farm worker front and center, whether it's workforce development, making sure they have the tools that they need, and really focusing on the housing needs. And that's very evident right now, improving van pools and other ways for safe transportation. Those are all things that we've always had on the list that hopefully we'll put those front and center as the governor says, not just coming back to the same old economy, but one with equity for all Californians. And so, my passion is to make sure our farm worker community has the tools that they need, the living accommodations that they need, and the support that they deserve for all that they do for us and being able to have this fabulous food supply.
Your farm story, I would love to hear more about that.
I was born and raised in Western Nebraska. So our ranch is about 15 miles from the Wyoming border. I had 3 younger brothers. All of our neighbors had boys in the family. I was like the only girl, like for miles and miles. It was dry land farming, feed grains and cattle. So 4-H kid, I could give the 4-H pledge, but I won't bore you with that right now. 4-H kid. And my mom got sick when I was in middle school and she died when I was a freshman. And my dad was just so, he was such a supportive, wonderful, loving father who really practiced the art of positive thinking. He used to put up little note cards and tape them to mirrors or the refrigerator to remind us that we could be anything we wanted to be and that we could make this day the kind of day we wanted it to be. So I'm very lucky that he inspired that kind of confidence in me.
Was he that way even right after your mother passed away?
He probably doubled down on it even more. Very lucky in that regard. I mean, obviously he went through a lot of grieving, but he had 4 young children. I was the oldest, and my youngest brother was 5. He was 3.5 when my mom got sick. And one of the saddest things for me is that he can't remember my mom. He would like to, and so he always wants to hear stories. And I just feel that I was lucky I got to know her for almost 14 years. Yeah. So that's where I came from. And then somehow or the other, I ended up taking a job. And that's how I got into politics. I met who was then the mayor of Omaha, and then he ran for the US Senate. And that provided me an opportunity to go to work for him running his field offices so I could go to the University of Nebraska at nighttime to get my college degree. And I don't know, that's a winding road. Who knows how, but when my husband came home one day and said, we're moving to California, I got the job of my dreams. I said, do they have agriculture in California? I have to tell that story because at that time, ag policy was all about the Midwest and the Southeast. And that just shows how few people knew the bounty and how lucky Americans are that we're able to grow 400 different commodities every day of the year, and that our folks have figured out the logistics of getting it to them so that they're well nourished. And it's awesome. And how lucky am I that I went through 7.5 months looking for a job, got my first job in ag, and this is where I ended up. I don't know how to explain it, Rob. I wish I could.
Well, it is such a phenomenal road that took you to where you are, because I have to go back though to what you were talking about with the loss of your mother and your father's inspiration. And he was running an operation already himself, a production. Was it a production operation?
Yep.
Cattle
and feed grains, wheat mostly. Yep.
Okay. And then a family at home, 4 children.
Yep.
Losing your mom, and you're the oldest.
Yep.
of the children, and that's a lot on you too, to have younger siblings.
Yeah. You look back at that and go, wow, at the time you're just doing, so I guess that's part of my attitude. I'm very pragmatic, but I'm also very collaborative because all of the families of Banner County watched out for us, quite truthfully.
And that's kind of the connection I feel.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that happened to you,
Yeah.
I thought, oh my goodness, because that connects so many dots of how you are so collaborative and how you are such a cheerleader for everyone. For everyone, you really are, equally across the board. I've worked with you for 10 years on various things, every year on something, and you are the champion for people.
Well, we're nothing without each other, right? Mm-hmm. And I was very blessed. I had my maternal grandmother was kind of like my spiritual role model. So that's one thing I never walked away from. Well, okay, for a couple of years, I didn't go to church, but I had her as a role model, and I learned so much from her because my mom was her youngest, and she was 33 when she died. And 2 years later, her only other child, another girl, also died. And I watched my grandmother just fall to her knees in grief. And then she spent the rest of her life until she was 96 and a half years when she passed, taking care of other people, including the old people at the nursing home. She used to say, I went to the nursing home today and wheeled people down to pink.
That is so dear.
I've been very blessed. That's all I can say.
What do you feel that you learned the most from your roots in Nebraska that you're able to apply here?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just your value system, and you figure that out. And I think part of mine was when I thought I wanted to do anything but agriculture or farming. And it's once I was out of that I realized this is who I am. This is what fills my heart. This is what gives me my sense of purpose. And it's about the land and that care for the land. And my dad was always pushing the envelope and trying to figure out new farming practices. And he was really interested in organics, but there wasn't a lot of support system for that at the time. So it's about the land and then connecting that to the food we eat, how we nourish one another. Food has always had great meaning to me as a way of building community. And part of it's because I'm about food when I'm happy. I'm about food when I'm sad, and think about all the casseroles that come in when somebody passes away in the family, and how we can share that food. And I've been so fortunate to be able to travel the world and to see systems with good food and systems without, and how blessed we are to have what's available to us. And so my get out of bed every morning, what charges me up is that opportunity to make sure every Californian has access to the healthiest food possible. And I have to say, in my heart, children and seniors are the ones that I really focus on making sure, how do we do that? Which is why I'm so excited to work with the first partner on the Farm to School program and the grants that we're going to be giving this year. It's that real opportunity that I get to bring the land, the people, the agricultural values, and feeding folks and nourishing them better. That's how we'll change the world, right? Come on, Rob.
That's just coming out right now, this program.
Yes.
So what should people know about that program?
So this is a program where we really want to focus on supporting our school nutrition directors who have a really challenging job on really small budgets of improving the offering of more local and fresh and from scratch cooking. And so we're running a pilot program this year for those schools who want to step into this space and start to make those transitions to help get them started on doing that. And it's a true way of connecting schools to local farmers and having that outlet for them. And one of the things after our interview process from our Farm to Fork office is they and the teachers and the administrators who see how good nourishment helps to improve performance in the classroom. And of course, we know it's going to help them as athletes or anything else. Mm-hmm. They also want to have that ag, food, environmental nutrition kinds of literacy. So it's about teaching and making it available and attractive in the cafeteria and in the classroom. And then those experiences of someday we'll be able to do farm tours again. of, school gardens, of going and learning about what it takes to do what we do in California to grow 400 different commodities. I'm very excited about the opportunities here. And it's really a tribute to, this area, farm to fork in this area has really become a model of doing that. And so, that there are others that now know we don't have to pioneer this. And so we're also supporting efforts to bring more regions together. And maybe this will help stimulate some new economic development around food hubs and doing some of that aggregation of many small farmers coming together. And of course, this is really important at a time where we really have a renewed focus on Black, Indigenous, people of color that are in the farming community, many that maybe English is not their first language. And so we want to make sure that we're reaching deep into our community to make sure that we make those connections.
You talk about, connections, and food really is the tie that binds. Yes, we have to have it, but with food, there's nothing that brings people together in a better way than feeding them in more ways than one. It feeds your soul.
Absolutely.
When you get people around a table and you eat together. And when the products are from this area, they are fresh and that they are fabulous.
Yeah.
When you see all of the fruits of the labor, particularly now after this past year and the struggles and the trials that have been gone through and are still going on right now, does it move you more to know how hard people have worked for the food that we eat? It still astounds me that many people don't know where their food comes from. And in ways I understand that, right? Because they don't know, they haven't seen the farms.
Right.
But does it mean more to you now?
It does, because I find myself, Rob, even when I'm at home and I'm thinking about, I wonder what Barry's fixing for dinner tonight. It's like all of a sudden food has become even more of a centerpiece. And it's still a joyful time for me. But what I miss the most, and it's made me appreciate more, are all the times that we're inviting people over, or we're having something backyard, whatever it might be, is that I'm finding joy in those moments. But it also, I can easily break into tears right now just thinking about the people who are going to a food bank to get food for the first time as opposed to volunteering in a food bank. And we've heard that story over and over again. We need to focus on hunger. There is real hunger. And I would say for food, as well as this yearning to restore civility and this sense of camaraderie that we can share as friends and neighbors.
And you know what I just thought about when you were talking about that, and it is very emotional to think about everything that we've been through. But if one thing also can bring us all together in this time and restoring that civility you talk about, it is food.
Yeah, I agree, totally. Let's go to dinner. Oh, Rob, I can hardly wait to host you.
I can hardly wait to hug you. It has been so long since I've hugged. So
I hear you.
But
think about this. I'm giving you the virtual hug. I just want you to know how much I love you, Rob. And it just made me feel so humble that you asked me to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. It made me feel so humble that you accepted. And I adore you, and you know that, and I appreciate you. You lead one of the world's largest economies when it comes to agriculture. And thank you for all that you do.
Thanks.
And you didn't
Take care.
Heavy. There's no such thing. It's real. It's real. And
That's real. That's us.
Thank you so much.
See you soon, okay?
It's
in person. Okay.
To see you.
Alrighty.
Secretary Karen Ross of the California Food and Agriculture Department. Good to see you.
Murphy Austin Adams Schoenfeld LLP, focusing on business law and commercial litigation, is proud to support Rob on the Road, Region Rising. More information available at murphyaustin.com.